Here's a checklist you need to be mindful of when you're a new nonprofit raising money. Let's get into it. Hey y'all, this is Tiffany with Boss on a Budget. I help people start their nonprofits and raise money for their new nonprofits because when I got started, there wasn't a whole lot of information about how to start literally from the ground up. So I provide content every week to help you, the startup nonprofit, be more successful. I have a private community for those who need help with fundraising. If you want to get into that private community, just comment, "I want to join," and I will send you the link below. So here are the 5 things I will be paying attention to if I wanted to raise money from the ground up. The first one is you have to understand what the money's being used for. And it sounds so simple when I'm saying this, but as I've talked to more and more nonprofit founders, I've realized that a lot of people just aren't clear. So when people ask me about help with fundraising, one of my questions is usually, well, how much do you need to raise and what do you need to use the money for? And I get a lot of blank stares, or it's just kind of silent on the line because people are like, oh, I never thought about it. Well, I guess I could use. And anytime it starts with, I guess I could use, then I already know you haven't gone through the processes to figure out what you need. And the reason why I'm starting with this, and the reason why it's so important for you to know how much you want to raise and also how you're spending it, is because your donors want to know that. So as a nonprofit, you absolutely have a responsibility to the people who are giving you money. It's not just, they give you money and you go off and do your thing. It's a relationship that you're starting when someone gives you money. It's a transaction, but it's a transaction that initiates some relationship. So there's an expectation, okay, if you want me to do this for you, it's not just for charity alone. It's because I believe it's going to go to something or it's going to help something. Otherwise, why else would I give my money? And you have to start thinking about the mindset of a donor and a person who would be willing to give their money to you. Because so many times you think about it as yourself, right? I need money. I know I'm great. I know I'm going to provide great services. I have a heart and a passion for this, and people should just give me off that strength alone. And when you're raising money, that's not enough. That may be enough for people who love you and care for you, but sometimes it's not even enough for those people because they probably are even more stringent and even more judgy, wanting to know what you're using it for if you're asking me for my money. So my biggest piece of advice, and it's going to be honestly one of the hardest things for you to do, is to outline what your goals are for the year, what your programs are for the year, and how much it costs to run those programs. That is essentially your budget. So many people struggle with this. So many people don't really have a budget, or they just go off what they feel works, or they take what people give. Oh, there's a grant for $5,000. Well, then it costs $5,000 to run my program. And I would warn you from kind of going down that route for too long, because you're going to automatically shortchange yourself and you're not taking a proactive stance. You're not asking yourself, what do I need to create the best program possible? You're essentially saying, well, I can do what I can based on what's out there and I'll just get by. But you shouldn't have an I'll just get by attitude. You should be thinking about, what does it take to be great? And I'll go raise the money that it takes to be great. So I want to ask yourself, what does it take to create a strong program? What is the process that you need to put in place to make sure you see the outcomes or the transformation of your programs? Ask yourself those questions and ask yourself, well, how much does it cost? And we may not be that in year 1 or year 3, but what is the process to get there and how much will that cost? So you have to really start asking yourself those hard questions. How much does it cost to run our programs? Because we need to know how much we're going to be asking people for. The other piece of this is you have to be able to communicate to folks what you're using the money for. And it's not enough to just say, oh, for programming. People like to see who they're helping. So which program, for which activities, for what part of the year. And for some of that, it doesn't have to be that specific, but it needs to be specific enough so people can see actually where the money's going. Oh, I'm helping kids with scholarships. Okay, great. Oh, I'm helping with care packages for kids who are in foster care. Okay, great. Right? So as specific as you can be about where the money will go, people can then begin to see themselves in it and want to give, because people will be way more likely to give towards a child in foster care instead of giving toward a program. The second thing you should be doing is focusing on your outcomes. So the reason why you're creating a nonprofit is because you're addressing a problem, you're filling a gap. You're providing a service and you're doing something for somebody. So first of all, you need to be clear on who you're helping or what you're helping. And once you know who that is, you got to ask yourself, what is it that my program or my service is going to do for those people, and how will it help or transform them? You got to be really, really clear on that, first of all, because that helps you identify your purpose. Because you're not just here to just provide a service, you're actually here to see results. And if you want people to invest in you, if you want people to support you, you have to show them, well, these are the results of your investment, or this is the result of your support. But if you haven't taken the time to think about, okay, well, what is that? What does that look like for somebody I'm serving? What does a change look like? What does transformation look like for that person? If you haven't thought that through, then it's probably hard for you to articulate that to a donor who's thinking about giving to you. So if you want to raise more money, also focus on your outcomes. What happens as a result of somebody's encounter with your program? And we're hoping that it's something positive and successful, right? But what is that? And begin to go through the process of writing that down. Now, I like to talk in simplistic terms on this channel because I don't want this to go over your head to the point you're like, oh, this is too much, I'm just going to turn it off. My goal is to keep you engaged so you can lean into this process. So once you start getting deeper into your outcomes, you need to start creating logic models. And that basically outlines in a graphic way the change that your organization creates, what you're putting in, and then the result of what you're putting in terms of your inputs, your resources, your activities, what happens as a result based on the things that you do. Once you start getting deeper into the work and asking for more money, you're going to have to start developing logic models and getting clear about your outcomes and start measuring that and collecting data so that people see that they're investing in something that's worthwhile. So if I wanted to raise some money, I would be thinking about my outcomes, and I would be thinking about how to phrase or message the change or the results of the work that my program or my service is doing. The third thing is have a strategy. Fundraising is not haphazard, but I know what it's like. I know what it's like when you see like a random GoFundMe campaign, or you see somebody doing a Facebook fundraiser and you see they're really, really successful, or you see that people keep trying, they keep doing events, or they keep doing other things to raise money. So it seems like, well, all I have to do is set up a Facebook fundraiser, or all I have to do is set up a tea or a gala and I can just raise money. But if there's one thing you could get out of this video, is the importance of having a strategy and understanding the kind of money you need to raise, how you plan to raise it, and what works best for the activities you need to complete. Because what another organization is doing may not fit your needs. So you have to understand what works best for you. So when I talk about strategy, first of all, you got to have a budget. We've already covered that. But you also need a fundraising plan. You need to ask yourself, what are the different fundraising activities that I want to launch this year? Or what are the different campaigns that I want to launch? But also, what kind of fundraising do I want to do? Because sometimes when I say the word fundraising, for me, I just mean, how are you going to bring in money? But for some people, that means, what events am I going to do? But it's so much bigger than that. Check out this video above about all the different ways that nonprofits can make money. But it's more than events, right? How are you going to attract new donors? How are you going to keep your donors? Are you going to do some kind of earned income strategy? Check out this other video I did on that, right? So what are the different ways that you're planning to make money? But you can't just decide to do a campaign. You also have to think about the resources it takes to run a campaign, to do an event, to do a peer-to-peer fundraising strategy, right? So who are the people on your team that can help you execute? If you don't have enough people, then there are certain strategies that you probably shouldn't use because you'll be wasting your time and you may waste money, right? So think about the people that you need. Think about the level of effort that's needed to launch. Think about the kind of money you're going to raise. Is it worth it? So a big one is with grants. Well, you can invest a lot of time and maybe even money by hiring a grant writer. And if you do win certain grants, is it going to give you everything you need to do your work? Because grant money can be restrictive. So is it going to give you the room to make good decisions or to pay people or do administrative stuff if it's only a program grant and if it's only allowing you to do certain activities, right? So just remember, this is strategy. It's like a dance. You got to figure out what works for you. And that also means when you're using a strategy, that means you're trying something here, you're assessing to see if it worked, then you're doing something else, you're retooling, you're evaluating, you're going back to the drawing board. That means that this is a living, breathing process. It's not just, I'm going to put together a campaign and I'm just going to raise money. So if I could say anything, approach this wisely. Approach it like this is strategy. Let's do a game plan about this. Let's brainstorm the best way instead of saying, oh, I think I want to do an event. You know, you can start there, but then as you start to see what it really takes to plan out your whole year and to really raise the money you need to raise, you'll begin to soon find that you need a strategy. So make sure you have your budget and make sure you have a fundraising plan in place. The fourth thing I want you to do is think about the process for collecting money. A lot of people miss this, but simply, how are you going to collect the money? And I really, really push you to go beyond Cash App, to go beyond PayPal and Venmo. You're going to hear me talk about this all the time because there are so many great tools available to you that are free that you're missing out on that can help optimize your process. And when I say optimize, that means that these services have studied what makes people give more, what keeps people on your page, what makes people give on a monthly basis. They've studied that and designed their forms and all of that to do that. But if you're just using Cash App, if you're just using PayPal or Venmo, you're not privy to that. So I encourage you to think about how are you going to actually collect the money and what are all the processes, technology, services you need to support that process. And I want you to map out that flow, right? So when a person wants to give, what is the first thing that they see? Is it going to be a campaign page? Is it going to be a pop-up on your website? Is it going to be a link on social media? Is it going to be something like a QR code or something you can text? What are the options there? And then when they click on that link, what kind of information are you collecting from that person? What kind of information do they see when they get to that page? What is inspiring them to give? What are the images? What's the words? All of that. You need to think about that. Once they do decide to give, what happens after they give? What's the process for the thanking of that? What's the process for, getting that money in your bank account? What's the process for sending a receipt, for recording that in your accounting? I want you to think about all of the processes for collecting money so that you're not missing anything. There are no gaps. And also so you don't lose people, because the goal is that once somebody gives to you, that's a commitment. So the goal is to make sure that they want to give again, or make sure they're still supporting you through the years because of that initial investment. And the last thing I would focus on for my checklist is thinking about relationship. Now, if you hear anybody talk about nonprofit fundraising, you're going to hear the word relationship a lot. But sometimes I feel like when I say that, it's kind of surface. People really don't get what we mean, like when fundraising or people who teach on fundraising mean by the relationship. But what I mean by that is it's more likely for somebody to invest in you or give to you if they know you or if they've encountered you in some way. So you have to think about, well, what is the best way I can get them to trust me? What is the best way I can engage with them? I can meet new people so they have the opportunity to learn more about me so that they can commit to providing some kind of support, whether it's through volunteering, whether it's through giving money, or whatever else you need from them. When you think about relationships, this is a basic analogy that a lot of business people use. You'll see this all over the internet, but when you're dating somebody, you're trying to get to know them. You're trying to understand them. You're courting them. Hopefully, you're courting them. You're learning what makes them tick. You're inviting them to learn more about you. You're going on dates. You're experiencing each other. And it's no different from a donor. So ask yourself, how are people getting to know my organization? How are people seeing the work up close and personal? How am I sharing the good work or the good stories if they can't see it for themselves, if they can't be there while we're doing the work? How are we sharing why it's so important to focus on this? How are we getting people involved and excited by telling them stories and sharing information about what's going on? Those are all the things you need to be thinking about. Then, if they do decide to give, you need to be thinking about, okay, how can I keep that relationship going? Because I want that person to remember me. I want that person to remember the organization, remember the mission, and be so fired up about it that they would tell other people, that they would give again, that they would think of ideas to help me out. Right? They become my ambassador. They become a super fan of my mission and of my organization. But to get people there, that's not automatic. People have to feel like they belong to your organization. They have to feel like they're a part of your mission. So what are the activities that you're going to do to make them feel like that? To make them feel like they're part of your community? To make them feel like when they gave, they actually helped somebody. It actually did something, right? Because people just want to naturally feel good. Giving is an enjoyable experience. So how can you leverage that and make it even more enjoyable? By sharing information about what their gift did, by sharing information about the hopes you have for your organization, the hopes you have for the people that you're working with. You want to inspire them. You want to activate their imagination. You want to activate their hope. And so I want you to think about how can you do that before they give, but also after they give, to continue that relationship. Was that helpful? If you have comments or questions, please drop them below. If you need help with your fundraising, or you just need an accountability group to stay on task because you really want your dream to launch, it has been your dream or your calling to launch this nonprofit, then make sure you join my Activate Your Purpose and Profit Society. It's my private membership community where we talk all about fundraising and we push each other to raise money for our nonprofits. If you need help with that, just comment "I want to join" below and I'll send you the link. If you need help just generally with your nonprofit, you can visit me at bossonabudget.com. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I will see you in the next one.